Hi, my name is Dan, and welcome to this new video entitled Pop and Culture. Now, I remember learning about this in college, back at the university actually, as a philosophy major. I've learned in a very difficult book, tutored by a very intelligent and rigorous professor, some things about its author, Martin Heidegger. The book is called The Question Concerning Technology from 1954. Don't get me wrong, I've studied it for a long time and read his book twice, but I still consider myself coming out short in this one, given that I only partially understood stuff that I read in it, even after essays, seminars, and help from my professor. The book, or what I understood of it, isn't really relevant to this text, to this story, nor are my former tutors, so we are going to focus on the important part, the relationship between Heidegger and cinema, more specifically between Heidegger and Terrence Malick. There are other better written, video essays and articles about this out there. So in reason of that, we are not going to dwell on philosophy for too long. Also, briefly mentioning, there are several other books worth talking about, but for the sake of making this a succinct watch, I'll name one more, Being and Time from 1927, which was one of the main ontology bases for Malik. Before we continue on Terrence Malik, I wanted to point out how powerful and subtle pop culture actually is, and how many times it shaped some aspects of our culture. The first of two examples is Friends, from 1994 to 2004. The sitcom had a lot of things coming out of their dialogue, jargons, but also plots that we see in Western society presents influence even today. From simple things like how Chandler's family is handled, or showing a gay marriage back in 1996, which was honestly kind of revolutionary for its time, especially if you consider series like Queer as Folk that came out a few years after that. In some other cases, however, there are weird coincidences, like in our second example, which is in the 1968 movie Barbarella. It is a sci-fi film that does its goofy job somewhat really well, with cool and at the same time terrible effects, and always astonishing acting from Jane Fonda. Even when her goal in the movie is to just be portrayed as a sex symbol, her work is unparalleled. In this movie, around the 1 hour 11 minutes and 25 seconds mark, you can see two members of the revolution, which was trying to take place in the world at that time, saying a password out loud.
And our password will be Llanffair Pwthyn with Golgeric Quindrobl Echlandicilio Go Go Go.
This password is the same as we have in a viral video where a weatherman makes an exemplary pronunciation of a Welsh village on the northeast coast of Wales, a Welsh village called.
Just up the road from Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll go get a Quindrobl, Llantysilio go go go.
There is no intention of making a point here, just bringing up that pop culture is present, whether that's intentional or not. It also shows our utmost tendencies. Now, back to Terrence Malick and one of my favorite movies from him, Badlands from 1973. His take on how to depict and narrate his character was, in my very humble opinion, sublime and perfect in its own flaws. The form the scenery takes with the character development, also with the ever escalating situations, with lots of unpredictability, you can notice the film's presentation of ontological landscapes. This philosophical view comes from his professor years and also from studying Martin Heidegger's ideas. Upon studying it for years, with the episode of even translating one of Martin's books, The Essence of Reasons from 1969, he chose a filmmaking career rather than an academic one. In all of his films, you can see the study of the being, his presentation of human nature, be that in the mentioned movie or even other works like The Thin Red Line from 1998. Some of his other movies had a lot of meaning in it too. If you take a look in essentially every single one of his films, you can notice his tendency to mixture philosophy with his style on how to present you the story. On the other hand, he also repeated several of his shots, being that winds, blowing leaves, trees, and overall nature shots are present in almost every movie of his. It's a very ontological display, right? So with that, you can either love or hate his work, but the amount of thought put in it is certainly respectable. Just as a comparison, We can take, for example, French director Eric Romer. Now, this is personal to me because not only he's one of my favorite directors of all time, he also interprets and illustrates several of Charles Baudelaire's ideas in his creations. Here we have another example of the mixture between philosophy and filmmaking, but this time in a more indirect way than before, given that Baudelaire was, if nothing else, an inspiration for Romer. This is nothing but a simple observation, though, but you can notice in his filmography throughout the character's thoughts and city landscapes, almost as if you were hearing Baudelaire himself. You have shows of it mostly when he goes into the city streets and sidewalks, filming the motion of the crowd with his characters, alongside of his characters, mostly using a small crew of only 5 or 6 members, and giving us Baudelaire's ideas and vision. This paragraph doesn't make it justice though, so if you like it, check La Moule Après-Midi or Chloe in the Afternoon from 1972 to see and also pay attention whenever he goes to describe the emotion of the crowd. The same as with Terence, Baudelaire is shown in several of Romer's movies. If you know little about him or even never watch any of his classics, here lies my recommendation. The whole reason I brought this up can be divided into two main explanations. The first is that we tend to find certain things interesting, no matter the culture or the time. You can take the movie Battle Royale from the 2000s, for example, which is taken with its dystopian world from Japan to Hollywood, being filmed and written under the same premise, just more romanticized in the Hunger Games trilogy from 2008 to 2012. Now, if you read or watched this video to this point, you probably have the same conclusion as I do. The more you study about the world, the more references you get. Of course, this helps, if nothing else, you to understand things that are shown to you. With that, you can either appreciate it more or simply be aware of it. Either way, we can live how Denis Diderot would want us to. Think for ourselves, knowing how the cogs in society works, so you can be a hypocrite and live among them, instead of not understanding it and trying to run away, or something like that. Although having this conscience, the option lies within you whether or not you want to take action. I added that last part actually. He didn't say that. Hope to see you guys next time.